We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Our guest by phone, one of our favorite guests, the author of American Individualism, Margaret Hoover. Clay, you had a question for
Great
Margaret.
book, too.
Excellent book.
Margaret, I was concerned. I'm in the insurance business. I do health insurance. And I gave a talk yesterday at one of the local Chamber of Commerce's about Obamacare and what's going to be taking place. And it's really staggering when you look at the tax implications that people are going to be facing and the increase in rates, especially for your millennium people. What is your thoughts about Obamacare? Will it survive? Will it be defunded? What do you think is going to happen with Obamacare in the next few years?
Well, I think it's really interesting that Paul Ryan's budget insists upon the repeal of Obamacare, because he just says sustainably in terms of the financials, it's going to be too expensive. The problem with passing a 2,700-page bill before anyone has time to read it and before any industries like your own, the insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, hospital industry, has any time to figure out what it's going to cost and what it's going to mean to them, is that we are still finding out how much this bill is going to cost us and how much it's going to cost us into the future. I think, unfortunately, that the law is here to stay. But I think that there are chunks of it, as it becomes apparent that they are not working, can be subject to legislative reform and repeal. And I honestly think, I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm really a glass half full kind of person. But I think that's our best shot at making a really bad law better.
Well, personally...
And the worst part is that it doesn't... the worst part about Obamacare is that the problem with healthcare... The problem with healthcare in this country is that it is at skyrocketing costs, and this massive 2,700-page bureaucratic bill of junk doesn't do anything to bend the cost curve on medical spending. So Medicare and Medicaid spending are still going through the roof, and this bill has added a huge amount of regulations and bureaucracies and bureaucrats to the medical industry and done very, very little, almost nothing, to pare down the cost of delivering quality health care to Americans.
Well, personally, I see this as a major opportunity for me personally, but I do think that the general public is in for a major awakening and a major shock as they continue to implement this program.
Well, and I think Margaret's, key generation, the millennial generation, is going to get hammered on this because, that requirement to where the elderly cannot pay, 4 times more than the rate for the young person?
3 times more, and why are you calling her elderly?
No, I'm calling you elderly.
Oh.
Not her.
3 times more.
Okay, so if you're looking at, like you say, an $800 rate for an elderly person, or let's make it simple, a $900 rate, then you're looking at $300 for a individual who's young, and that's quite a bit more than they're paying now.
Correct.
So, that's where they're going to get hammered.
I think there's going to be outrage as soon as people start figuring out who it's hitting the hardest and why. I just think we don't all have the same a sense. Like, there isn't a unified sense of how bad this is going to be and how widespread it's going to be. And my hope is that, as certain portions of the bill come to light, the ones that are most unjust and most unfair, that those can individually, item by item, be addressed legislatively.
Well, there's a lot of waivers that are being applied for, and I don't know if you're aware, but more waivers were issued in Nancy Pelosi's area than anywhere, and the second most was Harry Reid's area. So, but now that we found out what's in the bill, you said 2,700 pages. That was only the beginning. It's over 100,000 pages now with all the rules, regulations, and requirements.
Right.
And still growing.
That was just the initial bill, remember? And you're supposed to have 72 hours to review it. Nobody's had time to even read the thing.
Well, how are you going to read 2,700 pages in 72 hours?
Right, and it's basically just an outline, and now the unions are getting their exemptions, which is comical because they're the ones that were pushing this thing in the first place.
Unbelievable.
Well, you
unbelievable.
All right, let's move on to something more important.
I don't know. Now I'm depressed after listening to you two.
Well, for one thing, though, one real positive, you don't have to buy insurance if you don't want to. You pay a simple $95 fine.
Well, no, wait a minute. I'm going to disagree with the two of you here. I mean, I listened to the State of the Union speech, and my president said that this thing's not going to cost me a dime.
That's because you're going to waive off and pay $95.
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay. Our guest by phone.
Right.
Our guest by phone, Margaret Hoover. Margaret, we had Kevin McCarthy on, and he told a great story. He said he was sitting next to former President Clinton at an event, and he said, I looked at him, he said, I can't believe it, he says, but I can't believe how many people are telling me that they miss you. Here you had Clinton where he after he won his second term, he realized that he had to go to the middle where he met Gingrich, and they accomplished quite a bit. This guy, President Obama, is going to the left. So do you think we're going to be faced with having to fight him on everything for the next 3 years because he is going to the left?
The choice is his. The choice is absolutely up to him. The good news is that we have the House of Representatives that are Republican, and so there's divided government. So if he wants to get anything passed, he has to have Republican support. So he can either try to get Republican support or stand out of the way and let the regular order rule, which means the House passes a bill, the Senate passes a bill, they meet in conference and hack out all the details and figure out how to come to an agreement between the two, and then they send it to the president's desk, which means the president then becomes irrelevant in the process. So either he can work with Republicans or he can be irrelevant in the process.
So what do they do? What do they do when the Republicans lose the House?
Well, that's why we need to make sure Republicans don't lose the House.
Right.
But honestly, look, I think we need to support our members in the House of Representatives. I've looked at the map. There are a lot of districts that are up that are going to be close, but I don't see it happening. It's historically there's no precedent for it, and I think the Democrats are going to try. I think they're going to try hard, but yeah, I think Republicans and frankly I think Americans like divided government. They just want it to work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a segue I wanted to make here. Okay, so let's assume nothing goes on for the next 3 years, which is what I think is going to happen. I think it's just going to be a logjam up there in Washington. With that in mind, what do we need to do as Republicans to win the next election? Because, and I know you've got some pretty strong feelings on that, and that's actually part of what your book was based on. What do we need to do to change the scenario here in Washington and win the next election?
We need more people to vote for us. We can't win if we don't go get more people to vote for us, which means we got to go talk to more people and convince them to vote for us. I think it's pretty simple.
It is.
We got to go talk to these millennials and explain to them why Republican ideas and conservative ideas are better for them than liberalism. It's really, if you're going to distill it down, it's pretty basic. We need to win more votes than the Democrats.
We
need to convince more people to vote for us than vote for Democrats.
Are we out of step with the younger generation and the minority communities?
And the older people?
150,000%. Yes, we are. I mean, the millennials, they didn't vote for us. We have now gone 3 consecutive presidential elections without them voting for Republicans. Now, any new generation comes to politics. If they vote for the same political party in a presidential race 3 presidential elections in a row, they will not self-identify with the other party for the rest of their lives. Now, it doesn't mean they might not occasionally vote for a Republican, but they're never, ever going to self-identify with the party. They voted for John Kerry by 9 points in 2004. They voted for Barack Obama by 32 points in 2008. They voted for Barack Obama by 23 points again in 2012. So the first half of the millennial generation will never self-identify with Republicans. We have basically solidified this permanent brand damage with them. Now, the good thing is it's a huge generation. It's the biggest generation, and half of them haven't aged up to voting age yet. All of them will be of voting age by 2020. And so we have a chance with the tail end of the generation, and that's the silver lining. But, man, we've got to do a better job of connecting with them. And, by the way, if we try to reach out to millennials, we'll fix a lot of our problems because there are a lot of single women who are millennials, and there are a lot of Hispanics who are millennials. In fact, the largest minority cohort within the millennial generation are Hispanics, not African Americans. So by trying to go after the kids, you're going to start fixing the problems that we have in outreach to Hispanic community and to other minority communities. And by the way, one of the things to get back to what the Republican National Committee put out this report about what they feel they need to do better because they got so slaughtered in 2012 in November. And one of the things they said, and one of the things Reince Priebus, the RNC chairman, said yesterday is he's going to hire a slate of people to go out, and their job is to go to untraditional Republican communities and talk to them about their needs, their issues, their concerns, so they can begin to figure out how to bridge the divide.
Yep.
And
Margaret,
frankly, we need to do that.
I totally agree.
We got to sell our message in African American communities, Hispanic communities across the country.
And unfortunately, we're at the end of the show. We got to have you back soon.
When you get a full-time show.
Yes.
When you get a full-time show, we're going to have you back.
And Margaret, hang on, okay? We'll be back in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.